What's up, motivators? Welcome to another MotoMe presentation on health and fitness and all-around wellness, behavior change, and the steps and solutions to living the truckin' good life. Today's presentation is on human nutrition. I call this lesson evolutionary mismatch, sugar, and the DMV. So today we will go over evolutionary mismatch, which we'll talk about the difference between our evolution biologically versus our cultural evolution. We'll talk about sugar, which will be the main topic for this presentation: sugar nutrition, health versus addiction and disease. And we'll talk about the DMV, which is a method on sustaining motivation and time. So let's get into it. Topic 1, evolutionary mismatch, story of the human body and becoming maladapted to our environment. And you'll see there that I got a picture of a scene from WALL-E, that Disney movie, where the species had to leave the planet. And of course, they are extremely sedentary, sitting in their floating chairs, just completely fat bodies. And if you'll remember, once they reached the habitable planet, they had, evolved in that short time. They had maladaptedly evolved in that short time. They could barely walk. So when they got off the spaceship, finally reached their new home, their bodies were no longer conducive to health and movement. So let's consider this from Harvard paleoanthropologist Daniel Lieberman. We didn't evolve to be healthy, but instead we were selected to have as many offspring as possible under diverse and challenging conditions. As a consequence, we never evolved to make rational choices about what to eat or how to exercise in conditions of abundance and of comfort, which we live in today. So Daniel Lieberman wrote this book, The Story of the Human Body. Highly recommend reading it. I got a lot of wealth of information from it, and some of it you'll hear in this presentation today. So, mismatch diseases. Evolutionary mismatch, also known as mismatch theory or evolutionary trap, is a concept in evolutionary biology that refers to evolved traits that were once advantageous but became maladaptive due to changes in the environment, particularly in our cultural environment, which adapts to change much more quickly than our bodies do. So think of the smartphones today versus, the landline of only 3 decades ago. That's a cultural adaptation, cultural evolution that changed very quickly, whereas our bodies have developed over millennia, converging into our current form, the modern Homo sapiens, about 100,000 years ago. But you'll see there that many lines of evidence indicate that humans evolved to be adapted for regular, moderate amounts of endurance and physical activity into late age. So if you think of our hunter-gatherer and even our agricultural forefathers, whose farming methods took much more physical labor than our industrial farmers of today, and those forefarmers, if you will, never even considered retirement. They were doing labor into old age. Additionally, because the energy from food was limited in those times, humans were selected to avoid unnecessary exertion, so we could conserve caloric energy for survival. This means that selection never operated to cope with long-term effects of today's chronic inactivity, sedentary behavior combined with calorie abundance, being able to just go to the grocery store, go to the corner store and buy a Snickers. So the way we live today, sitting for the majority of our time and with the easy access to food, is creating mismatched disease in our bodies, including hypertension, heart disease, diabetes, osteoporosis. So we are in these routines. Sometimes, like if you think of traffic, there's been studies that commuting causes a lot of stress and anxiety, leading to hypertension, negative sleep patterns, creating a myriad of problems. Bad nutrition is obviously causing diseases like diabetes, and us not exercising, is leading to problems like osteoporosis and just all around morbidity and, and death. So, The development of our current bodies, that includes our guts, which have about 100 million nerves, more than the number of nerves in your spinal cord or in your entire peripheral nervous system. So why aren't we paying attention to our gut brain? Why are we ignoring the pains and discomfort of our digestive system? The diseases we mentioned in the last slide can be significantly reduced and reversed by changing our diet and exercising. Prevention is a fundamentally preferable and more cost-effective way to promote health and longevity. Most people agree that we invest insufficiently in prevention, but they would also say that it is difficult to get people to avoid behaviors that increase their risk of future illness. But why is preventing these diseases so simple? Diet and exercise, right? Yet so difficult to act out on a daily basis. One reason are these two words, bliss point, and we'll get into that. So let's head into topic 2 then, sugar. Understanding why we crave sugar and how to eat healthier. So one study tested 356 children, ages 5 to 10. This was a test done by a large corporation, manufacturer of processed food. They were brought in to determine their bliss point for sugar. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but the bliss point is the precise amount of sweetness, no more, no less, that makes food and drinks most enjoyable. So the term bliss point itself, when it comes to sugar, appears to have been coined in the 1970s or so by Boston mathematician named John Ballantyne, who used computer modeling to predict eating behavior, and the concept has obsessed the food industry ever since. So the bliss point is the optimal ratio of sugar, fat, and salt that stimulates the reward center of the brain. It triggers pleasure and causes us to crave more. Hunger hormones are affected, causing you to eat more. So another well-known mover and shaker in the industry is Michael Moss. He's an American journalist and author, and he was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for his explanatory reporting in 2010 for this book here, Salt, Sugar, and Fat. So some of the largest companies, again, I highly recommend, this is another book that I got a lot of value from, but some of the largest companies are now using brain scans to study how we react neurologically to certain foods, especially to sugar. They've discovered that the brain lights up for sugar the same way that it does for cocaine. So the notion that some of these foods behave like narcotics goes back at least 20 years in most scientific circles. There's nearly universal consensus that we should prohibit selling and serving alcohol to minors because wine, beer, and spirits have addictive properties, and when used excessively can be very detrimental to health. So is excess sugar any different? We know that excess sugar also can be detrimental to health. It's clearly extremely addictive, almost in the realm of a drug addiction. But is all sugar bad? No. A simple rule is good sugar is found in whole, unprocessed foods, such as fruit, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains. And bad sugar is like added sugar, also called free sugar, that we put in our coffee, use in baking to hide in sauces like spaghetti sauce, ready-made meals, and sweet drinks like soda. So let's dive into that good versus bad controversy of sugar a little bit. The main problem really with sugar arises when we consume too much sugar. When our body has enough energy, it stores any extra sugar for later by converting it into fat. Sugar is actually just a carbohydrate. In fact, it's the simplest form of carbohydrate. When our body digests more complex carbohydrate, it actually breaks them down into simple sugars. So once digested, sugar is absorbed into your bloodstream as glucose, and glucose is the main fuel or energy for your body. People are failing to distinguish here between simple and complex carbohydrates. So they recommend that people minimize intake of carbs, like low-carb diets, and then increase intake of protein, even high-fat, high-cholesterol animal proteins, which can cause even more disease. So more controversy arises when marketing pulls us into negative eating behaviors. Manufacturers of processed foods argue that they have allowed us to become the people we want to be, fast and busy and no longer slaves to the stove, like Betty Crocker, who was actually made up by food manufacturers. You would read in that book as well, Salt, Sugars, and Fat. Anyway, so, but in their hands, the salt, the sugar, the fat, they have used all of these to propel our cultural transformation, and they're not nutrients. They're being used, as we discussed earlier, as weapons, really, weapons that deploy to defeat their competitors and keep us coming back to buy more and more because, once you pop, you just can't stop, right? So we've got to be careful of that. There's a connection between sugar, health, and disease. So we know that sugar doesn't directly cause type 2 diabetes, but you're more likely to get it if you are overweight. You gain weight when you take in more calories than your body needs, and sugary foods and drinks contain a lot of calories, which can easily lead to overeating. So we can see that when too much sugar is making us put on weight, especially visceral fat, then we are increasing our risk of getting type 2 diabetes. Sugar can also cause disease in the brain, problems with sleep, stress, anxiety, oral health, liver and heart problems, inflammation, cancer, and even weaken the immune system. Okay, so how much sugar should we eat? What is the importance of sugar? Should we just cut it all out? And how do you maintain, and why do you maintain healthy diet and body weight? Well, the World Health Organization suggests that consumption of less than 10% of total energy intake from, added sugars, free sugars, is optimal. That's about 12 teaspoons or 50 grams. So if you look at like the back of a soda can, usually that'll say, I think that's like around, 50 grams. So just even one soda. So if you start to memorizing the grams, that helped me as I started to try to pay attention to labels. But so a person, who's of healthy body weight, consuming an average of 2,000 calories per day, whatever your caloric intake is, just know that you want to be below 10% of that in added sugars. And the American Heart Association even suggests less. They're saying no more than 100 calories per day should be sugar, and that's about 6 teaspoons or 24 grams for women, and no more than 150 calories per day or about 9 teaspoons or 36 grams for men. So, but research has also shown that consuming less than 5% of your daily intake in sugar has shown to induce additional health benefits. So just be watchful, maintaining a healthy diet and body weight is, conducive to reversing disease, and, exercising, stopping smoking, eating nutritious diet, and practicing, stress management techniques. All of these things are helpful in every area of life, really. They help you in your personal relationships, in the ability to be just cognitively a better person all around, to have better finances, better health, better nutrition, just life in general. We want longevity and vitality and energy, but if we do it in the wrong way, we're actually creating disease in the body. So one thing that I wanted to make sure to point out was those free sugars or added sugars. Those are all in the foods and drinks by the manufacturer or cooked by the consumer. They're naturally present in honey, syrups, fruit juices, and fruit concentrates also. So you really have to look for them pretty hard. Here's 75 different names for sugar, and the manufacturers, they'll get tricky. They'll if there's less than a certain percentage of sugar in the sauce or the juice or whatever it is, then they don't have to list it on the label, on that top little label where it says like carbs and fat and sugar, right? It could say sugar 0. But then when you look in the ingredients list, they might list several of these names for sugar. And what they've done really is just added, 5 different sugars of different names, but in less amounts, but it still totals up to high grams or high teaspoons of sugar in that product. And so, yeah, you just got to be careful. They're trying to sell a product, and it's not all bad either. These aren't like diabolical companies. In fact, in that book, Salt, Sugar, Fat, he goes on to explain that companies, big companies like Kraft in 2011, pushed large campaigns of, low sugar and more healthy products. And they were legitimately more healthy. And yeah, we didn't buy them, so the company couldn't sustain by producing those products and went back to just producing the high fat, high salt, high sugar products. So, maybe these companies were just about a decade too early. I think that the society is still, starting to move towards healthy products, and maybe, like, it's up to us though. We gotta buy them off the shelf. We gotta buy the good products so that we can say, hey, big company so and so, this is what we want to buy. And that starts just with awareness and making sure that what you're buying, has good stuff in it and less bad stuff. So let's see, how to cut down on sugar and increase consumption. We'll just continue in that train of thought of increased consumption of healthier foods for energy and balance. Instead of chocolate bars, sweets, cakes, biscuits, choose healthier snacks such as unsweetened yogurts, unsalted nuts and seeds, fruits and vegetables, whole fruits, whole vegetables. Experiment with reducing the sugar that you use in recipes. Most recipes will work just as well without any or at least less sugar. Like I said, keep your eye on the labels. Keep your eye on reduced fat foods. Many actually contain more sugar, as food manufacturers add sugar to compensate for the altered taste and texture caused by the fat being removed. So just look at the label and check those things. You need to look at the label and the ingredients list. And you can even look up a product online. Sometimes there's even more information on the product online if you use your phone in the store that just doesn't fit on the label, and they're not forced to put it there. Also, just eat whole fruit, eat vegetables rather than having juices or smoothies, and even pure fruit juices contribute to added sugar intake. So just be cautious. I mean, even if the grams are the same, you really don't want more than 36 grams of sugar. So I want to say a peach or whatever, if you have, you can have too many apples and end up eating too much sugar, even though it's whole fruit and it's good sugar. You can still overeat the good stuff also. So just keep an eye on that. And then, so all of this is kind of converging on this getting to the DMV of it. We learned that our bodies aren't evolved to be in the environments that we're in now. There's not a whole lot that we can do about that. Our bodies are just going to have to evolutionarily keep up, or we're going to have to, as a society, start to make these changes. We're going to have to start to choose to put restrictions on ourselves. And Daniel Lieberman gets into a little bit more of the philosophy of that if you want to get that book, The Story of the Human Body. But an evolutionary perspective predicts that most diets and fitness programs will fail as they do because we still just don't know how to counter those once adaptive primal instincts to eat the donut and to take the elevator instead of the stairs. So the most common reasons adults give for living unhealthy are time and motivation. And we are confused about fitness and nutrition. Experts constantly disagree, and or the information changes. What we know about nutrition it's an evolving science, as is all the hard sciences. And so the food pyramid of my childhood actually isn't the greatest thing anymore. So you have to be willing to change your ideals and change your behaviors as new information comes out. The media makes a living by entertaining us with the controversy and the disagreements and the fear in fitness and nutrition and disease and death. So it's hard to know which expert to believe, but it's definitely not the media. So another excuse, right? The excuse is we don't have time. I just don't have time. But we all have the same amount of time. This is the number one fitness objection in the country, yet fitness leaders like myself, in my training programs, just haven't been trained, or we've been trained to ignore it. It's just something that we're like, time is a legitimate objection, and that needs to be resolved. And so that's why I think that there's kind of a gap in education as far as fitness trainers go, and the study of psychology and behavior change really needs to be applied more to that industry. So we don't know how to stay motivated to exercise. Make exercise fun has been the main solution promoted by mainstream fitness. All the different tools and techniques. I even seen one that's like a video game. So you're in the plank position, like moving around your arms and playing a game. I guess like you're playing, I don't know. But yeah, so they're trying to make it fun. But, now some research is showing that nearly 70% of our heart attacks are being experienced by unfit Americans engaging in just sporadic weekend bouts of fun and exercise. So we need to learn what's our personal ideal way to move, and we need to learn to do it daily to prevent injury. So let's get to the DMV. The DMV method is define, measure, and victory. So we created this at MotoMe, define, measure, victory, based off of another method by Ogi Shah. Ogi Shah Fitness is a spin-off from the American Physical Fitness and Fitness Motivation Institute of America. Really great guy. He's been a mover and shaker since, in 1979. He designed an off-season conditioning program for the Portland Trail Blazers. He served as consultant and instructor for the Seattle Seahawks in their use of isokinetic aerobic exercise. And he's given, more than 5,000 talks on motivation and fitness. And you can see one of his TED Talks and references at the end of this presentation. So, define. Fitness itself is defined as the condition of being fit and healthy. It's not even an actual exercise program, workout, or diet. It's the result of those things, right? Daily movement is key, but defining how you're going to get moving and what you are going to eat for health is unique and personal to the individual, and you must define it for yourself before you can begin. So the next step is measure. Once you start and you do a few things, people don't do what you expect. Ogi says that they do what you inspect. And so not what you expect, they do what you inspect. So the surest way to get and stay motivated is to exercise, and motivated to exercise and eat well is through feedback analysis. So we just need to start thinking of life as a personal nutrition science experiment. Begin to study yourself, analyze the results, and make changes to eliminate problems so that you're left living within the healthiest possible body and mind. And the last stage is victory. And it's not really a stage, right? This is just a continuous problem. Do one, it's like the scientific method, right? You just got to keep rediscovering. But victory, research suggests the continuous pursuit in growth progress is what keeps humans happy. So it's the journey, it's the progressive search and striving to do better. Not really the attaining of the goal necessarily, but who you become on the way. But celebrating the wins along the way, especially for your small goals, your short-term goals, and the big ones too, is proven to increase self-efficacy and motivation, and encourages people to continue on their pursuits and on their journey. So once you've defined what you want to do and how you're going to do it, you start down the path a little bit. You're measuring it, you're just seeing if it works. If it doesn't change, if it is, celebrate. Celebrate your accomplishments and keep going. And that's what it is. That's what life is. You just got to keep going, keep striving, keep changing, and then you get there. So mastery requires action. They may have salt, fat, and sugar on their side, but we ultimately have the power to make choices. We decide what to buy. We decide how much to eat. We decide to get up and move. If there's any last freedom that you truly, truly have, it's the distance from your hand to your mouth. You pick that up and put it in your mouth. That is your choice. So how bad do you want it? The latest studies are showing that lifestyle changes are often actually better than drugs and surgery in treating and even reversing many of the most prevalent chronic diseases, including coronary heart disease and early stage prostate cancers. So I just want to say that the last things are community. So another great tool or technique in the process of behavior change is getting around like-minded people. You get around a like-minded community, you're more likely to succeed, learn new tools, learn new techniques, share challenges, get support. We've created a specific Facebook group for all you motivated truck drivers out there who are looking to change your lifestyle and do this better out on the road. So you can come find us there at MotoMe Trucker Facebook group. We are encouraging you to live your truckin' good life. Live motivated. Commit, motivate, and succeed. Keep going. You can do it. We have to be the change in this industry. We are neglected out here, and nobody's really caring about our health or the fact that we have to survive on gas station food, right? And we have to be that change. So a little bit about us. My name is Gates. Of course, my business partner's name is Lenora, and we are military veterans. We started our personal development business, MotoMe, in 2016, and have just recently started a small fleet trucking business, San Diego Enterprises. And so we are out here doing it with you. We are team drivers over the road, running a fleet, running another personal development businesses. We're personal trainers, behavior transformation specialists. We deep dived into functional patterns and human biomechanics movement, and And of course, this presentation actually is for one of my classes because we are also out here on the road pursuing our bachelor's degrees in health and wellness. So if we can do it, you can do it. We'd love to hear your story. We'd love to have you follow us and come on our journey, and hopefully we can make some great changes together. If you're interested, here's some references, all the references and research that I did for this presentation. I really hope that it provided you some value. Here's the authors and speakers that I mentioned before: Michael Moss, Daniel Lieberman, Dean Michael Ornish, and Ogi Shah. All right, guys, just remember, stay healthy, stay motivated. I'll see you out on the road.